The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. In the year 2347, they finally knew the answer, and the answer was terrifying. Admiral Taeho Kang stood at the observation window of the Seoul space station, watching the alien fleet emerge from the darkness. 100 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They appeared like ghosts, sliding out of folded space with a technology humans could barely understand. The ships were silver and black, covered in strange patterns that seemed to move and shift. "They're beautiful," said Captain Minho Lee, standing beside him. "In a terrible way. Beautiful things can kill you," Taeho replied. His voice was calm, but his hands were tight behind his back. He had spent 30 years in the military. He had seen battles and death, but nothing like this. On Earth below, 7 billion people were waking up to the news. Screens in every city showed the alien fleet. Some people screamed. Some prayed. Most just stared in silence at the massive ships floating above their world. President Yoona Park was already in the emergency bunker beneath the Blue House in Seoul. Her advisors surrounded her, talking fast and loud, papers flying, screens flashing with data. She raised her hand, and they fell silent. "What do they want?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, the main screen flickered. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had pale blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible mouth. When it spoke, the words came directly into their minds, translated by technology far beyond human science. "I am Ambassador Thyra of the Galactic Council," the creature said. "I speak for the 42 elder species who rule this galaxy. You are the species called human. You have recently discovered interstellar travel. You have built colonies on 3 star systems. This makes you I'm noticed." President Park stepped forward. "We greet you in peace. Humanity wishes only." "Your wishes are not relevant," Thyra interrupted. The 4 eyes blinked slowly, one after another. "The Galactic Council has ruled this galaxy for 9 million years. Every species that achieves space travel must pay tribute. This is the law. This is the order. This is how things are." The screen changed to show a list of demands. President Park read them slowly, her face becoming pale. Annual tribute of 30% of all mined resources. 10% of the human population to serve as labor workers on council worlds. Surrender of all military vessels. Permanent council observers on Earth and all colonies. Any violation would result in immediate military response. "You have 72 hours to accept," Thyra said. "The council is not cruel. We give you time to understand your position. Look at our fleet. Look at our power. You are children who have just learned to walk. We have ruled the stars since before your species existed. Do not make the mistake of believing you have a choice." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then General Sun Woo Baek, commander of Earth's ground forces, slammed his fist on the table. "Slavery," he said. "They're demanding slavery. 10% of our people? That's 700 million human beings working as servants for these creatures." "We cannot fight them," said Minister Jiang, the foreign affairs advisor. Her voice was shaking. "Did you see those ships? One of them could destroy our entire fleet. We have to negotiate. We have to find a way to survive." "Survive as what?" Sun Woo shot back. "As pets? As slaves? I would rather die fighting." "Easy words when you're not the one being sent to alien mines," Ji Young replied. The arguing grew louder. President Park let them talk, her eyes fixed on the window that showed the sky above. Somewhere up there, 100 alien warships waited for humanity's answer. That night, Admiral Taeho Kang came to the bunker. He brought Dr. Hana Choi, the chief scientist of Earth's Weapons Research Division. She was a small woman with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers. She had not slept in 2 days. "Tell them what you told me," Taeho said. Hana activated her tablet. Data filled the air in holographic displays. "I've been studying their ships since they arrived. Their technology is advanced, far beyond ours. But, she paused, pulling up comparison charts. It's also old. Very old. The basic design of their weapons hasn't changed in at least 4,000 years. Their tactics are predictable. Their shields operate on frequencies we can calculate. What are you saying? President Park asked. I'm saying they stopped innovating a long time ago. They got powerful, and they got comfortable. They haven't had to fight a real war in centuries. Every species they meet just surrenders. Hana looked at the president with steady eyes. They've never met anyone stupid enough to fight back. Stupid, Sunwoo repeated. Or brave. Sometimes those are the same thing, Hana replied. Admiral Taeho stepped forward. Madam President, I won't lie to you. If we fight, we will lose ships. We will lose people. Many people. But Dr. Choi is right. They're not expecting resistance. They don't know how to handle a species that refuses to kneel. President Park was quiet for a long time. She thought about the 7 billion people counting on her. She thought about the children who would grow up as slaves if she made the wrong choice. She thought about her grandmother, who had once told her stories about resistance and courage, and the price of freedom. Can we win? She finally asked. Taeho looked at her with eyes that had seen war. I don't know, but I know this. Some things are worse than losing. Surrender is worse. Living on our knees is worse. Teaching our children that freedom can be bought by giving up their brothers and sisters, that is worse. President Park nodded slowly. She turned to face her advisors, her generals, her scientists. Her voice was quiet but strong. Prepare our response, she said, and prepare our fleet. 72 hours began to count down. On Earth, factories switched to military production. In space stations, engineers worked without sleep. In training camps, soldiers made peace with their gods. And in the darkness between stars, Ambassador Thyra waited, completely certain that the humans would kneel. She had never been more wrong about anything in her long life. The United Nations Assembly Hall had never been so full. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in their places. Military leaders stood along the walls. Scientists, diplomats, religious figures, and ordinary citizens filled every remaining space. Outside, billions more watched on screens across the planet and on every human colony in space. 72 hours had passed. Ambassador Thyra materialized in the center of the hall. Her projection was perfect, solid enough to seem real. Behind her, floating in the air, holographic images showed the Council fleet still waiting in orbit. A reminder, a threat. The time has come, Thyra said. Her voice echoed through the silent hall. Earth will now present its tribute schedule. You will name the resources you will provide. You will name the citizens you will surrender. You will confirm the dismantling of your military forces. She waited. Her 4 eyes scanned the room with something like boredom. She had done this many times before. Every species reacted the same way. Some cried. Some begged for better terms. Some tried to negotiate. In the end, they all knelt. President Una Park rose from her seat. She was wearing a simple black suit. No jewelry, no symbols of office. Just a woman standing to speak for her entire species. The hall was absolutely silent. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Thyra tilted her head. You may present your tribute offer. President Park walked slowly to the central podium. She looked at the alien ambassador. She looked at the images of the warships. She looked at the faces of her people, watching her with hope and fear. Then she spoke. No. The word hung in the air like a living thing. Thyra's translator glitched. The word was so unexpected that the system assumed an error. There appears to be a malfunction in translation. Please repeat your response. President Park leaned closer to the microphone. Her voice was clear and strong. No. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our people. We will not give up our ships. We will not accept your observers. The answer is no. For the first time in centuries, Ambassador Thyra felt something she did not recognize. Later, she would understand it was confusion. No species had ever said this word to the Council. You do not understand, Thyra said slowly. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. The Council has existed for 9 million years. We have brought order to the galaxy. Species that refuse tribute are destroyed. Completely. Their planets are burned. Their names are erased from history. You cannot say no. Admiral Teho Kang stepped forward from his position among the military leaders. His uniform was crisp and his back was straight. He had been a soldier for 3 decades. He was not afraid of threats. We understand perfectly, he said. We know what you can do. We know you have destroyed civilizations before us. We know your fleet could glass our cities. He paused, looking directly at the ambassador with steady eyes. We don't care. The answer is still no. Thyra made a sound that might have been laughter. You are insane. You would choose death over service? General Sun Wu-Baek stepped forward next. He was a big man with gray hair and hands scarred from years of combat. When he smiled, it was not a friendly expression. Let me explain something to you, he said. Humans have been fighting each other since we climbed down from trees. We fought with rocks. We fought with swords. We fought with guns and bombs and weapons that could destroy our own world. We survived all of it. He pointed at the holographic warships. You think those scare us? We built worse things to use on ourselves. Thyra's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. This is foolishness. Your entire species will die. Maybe, said Dr. Hana Choi, standing among the scientists. Her voice was quiet but carried through the hall. But we've calculated something interesting. Your ships are powerful. Your technology is advanced, but your tactics haven't changed in 4,000 years. You've never fought anyone who actually fights back. She pushed her glasses up her nose. We think that's going to be a problem for you. The ambassador's projection flickered with what might have been anger. You are making a terrible mistake. President Park spoke again. No. You made the mistake. You came to our world and demanded our children as slaves. You expected us to kneel because every other species knelt. She shook her head slowly. We are not every other species. We are human. And humans do not kneel. The entire hall erupted. People stood and cheered. Some were crying. Some were laughing. The sound of 700 voices, shouting defiance, filled the ancient building. In homes across Earth, in stations orbiting distant planets, in colony domes on alien moons, humans watched and felt something old and powerful rising in their chests. Pride. Fury. Hope. Ambassador Thyra raised her hand for silence. When she spoke, her voice was cold. You have chosen extinction. I will transmit your response to High Arbiter Velmos. The Council's fleet will begin operations immediately. Your world will burn. Your colonies will fall. Your species will be remembered as a footnote, the fools who said no. Before you go, Admiral Teho said, I want you to give your arbiter a message from me. Thyra paused. What message? Teho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Tell him to bring more ships. He's going to need them. The ambassador's projection vanished. For a moment, the hall was quiet. Then President Park turned to face her people. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of history. Today we chose freedom over safety. Today we chose to fight instead of surrender. Many of us will not survive what comes next. But our children will grow up free. Our grandchildren will walk among the stars as equals, not as slaves. She paused. Is that not worth fighting for? The answer came as a roar from 700 throats. And across human space, billions more joined the cry. In orbit, Warlord Grin received Thyra's transmission. He read it 3 times, certain there was an error. Then he began preparing his fleet for combat. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had never lost a battle. He expected this one to be the easiest of all. He was about to learn why the galaxy should have left humanity alone. The first battle of the Human Council War happened 3 days after President Park said no. It took place in the cold darkness beyond Mars, where the asteroid belt stretched like a broken necklace across the solar system. Warlord Grin brought 92 warships. Each one was enormous, covered in weapons that had burned civilizations to ash. His crews were veterans of a dozen conquests. His strategy was simple. Advance in formation. Fire until the enemy surrendered, then move to the next target. It had worked for 3,000 years. Admiral Teho Kang had 47 ships. They were smaller, newer, and built by engineers who had never seen alien technology until 3 months ago. His crews were young and scared, and determined to protect their home. The two fleets faced each other across 10,000 kilometers of empty space. "All ships report ready," said Captain Minho Lee from the bridge of the Defiance. The ship was a heavy cruiser, one of Earth's newest and most powerful vessels. Minho had commanded her for 2 years. He knew every sound she made, every shake and rattle. Today, she hummed with barely contained energy. "Signal from the enemy fleet, sir," his communications officer reported. "Warlord Grin demands our immediate surrender. He says he will accept it gracefully and minimize casualties." Minho laughed. It was a short, hard sound. "Tell him we have a counteroffer. If he turns around now, we won't destroy all of his ships." The message was sent. There was a long pause. Then the Council fleet began advancing. "They're coming in standard formation," reported Dr. Hana Choi from her position on the research vessel Far Horizon, tucked safely behind the main battle line. "Diamond pattern. Carriers in the center. Destroyers on the flanks. Exactly like we predicted." Admiral Tejo nodded from his flagship. "All ships. Execute scatter protocol. Make them chase us." Human ships were smaller and faster than Council vessels. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they split apart, diving and weaving through the asteroid field like fish through coral. The tight Council formation suddenly had targets in every direction. Grin ordered his ships to fire. Plasma lances, concentrated beams of superheated energy, reached across space. They were devastating weapons, capable of melting through any known metal. But they were also slow and predictable. Human ships dodged, they spun and rolled and dove behind asteroids. The plasma lances hit rock and empty space instead of targets. Grin's gunners had never faced enemies who moved like this. Every species they had fought before simply lined up and waited to die. "They're confused," Minho reported, watching the enemy fleet struggle to reform. "Their targeting systems can't track us. Then let's give them something to really worry about," Tejo replied. "All ships, execute Phase 2. Launch missiles." Every human vessel fired simultaneously. Not the massive energy weapons the Council used, but thousands of small missiles, each one carrying a nuclear warhead. They spread across space like a swarm of angry insects. Council point defense systems activated. Lasers and plasma bursts destroyed missiles by the dozen. But there were too many. The swarm was too fast, coming from too many angles. The first nuclear explosion lit up space like a small sun. Then another. Then 20 more. 3 Council destroyers died in the first wave. Their shields, designed to stop concentrated energy beams, could not handle the overwhelming kinetic force of nuclear detonations. The ships cracked and broke and burned. Warlord Grin stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had lost 3 ships. In the first 5 minutes, against primitives who had discovered space travel less than a century ago. "All ships, increase power to shields," he commanded. "Target their launch platforms." But the human ships were already moving again, weaving through asteroids, emerging from unexpected angles to fire more missiles before diving back into cover. The battle became chaos. The neat formations Grin depended on fell apart, as his captains tried to chase enemies they could not hit. Human ships took damage, shields failed, hulls cracked, crews died, but they did not stop. Every time a Council ship managed to target a human vessel, 2 more appeared to strike it from behind. Captain Minho Lee pushed the Defiance hard. His ship screamed through the asteroid field, dodging plasma blasts that would have vaporized him instantly. His weapons officer fired constantly, putting missile after missile into enemy vessels. "Hull breach on Deck 7, his damage control officer shouted. "We've lost 30 crew. Seal it and keep fighting," Minho ordered. His voice was steady even as alarms screamed around him. "We're not done yet." Far behind the battle lines, Dr. Hana Choi watched her instruments carefully. She was waiting for the right moment. In the belly of the Far Horizon sat her greatest creation. Project Prometheus. "The enemy carriers are clustering," she observed. "They're trying to protect their damaged ships. Can you hit them?" Tejo asked over the command channel. "If I activate Prometheus now, I can catch at least 4 carriers in the field. But I only get 1 shot." The power requirements will burn out the system. Do it. Hana pressed the activation key. Project Prometheus was humanity's answer to superior alien technology. It was a weapon that created a small, temporary gravitational singularity, a microscopic black hole that existed for only 3 seconds. But in those 3 seconds, anything within its pull would be crushed into nothing, space twisted, light bent. 4 council carriers, each one 3 kilometers long, suddenly found themselves falling toward a point that should not exist. Metal screamed and tore. Hulls crumpled like paper. 60,000 council crew members died without understanding what killed them. When the singularity collapsed, only debris remained. Warlord Grin watched the readings and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. All ships, he ordered, his voice no longer confident. Fall back. Regroup at the edge of the system. The council fleet retreated. 47 ships had driven back 92. Impossible. Unthinkable. Admiral Taeho Kang stood on his bridge, watching the enemy flee. His fleet was battered. He had lost 12 ships and over 3,000 crew members. The survivors were exhausted, their vessels held together by emergency repairs and desperate hope, but they had won. General Sun Woo Baek's voice came over the communication channel. He had watched the battle from Earth. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Number. It's not over, Taeho replied. They'll be back, with more ships, more weapons. Then we'll beat them again. Taeho allowed himself a small smile. Send a message to the retreating fleet. Tell them to go home. Tell their arbiter what happened here today. Tell them this is what happens when you threaten humanity's children. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under council rule for millennia watched the battle recordings in shock. The mighty council. Beaten by newcomers. The eternal order. Shaken by a single word. On 100 worlds, beings who had long ago accepted slavery began to whisper a new word. Hope. The council capital was a world called Vithara. It was ancient beyond human understanding, covered in cities that had stood for millions of years. The council chambers sat at the heart of the largest city, a building made of crystal and light, where the 42 elder species had gathered to rule the galaxy since before Earth's sun existed. High Arbiter Velmos stood at the center of the chamber. He was old. Even by his species standards, 8,000 years of life had given him patience that younger beings could not imagine. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species grow from primitive animals to starfarers. He had overseen the conquest of over 1,000 worlds. Never, in all that time, had he received news like this. Explain, he said, his voice like grinding stone. Warlord Grin's holographic image flickered in the chamber. The once proud commander looked broken. His confident posture was gone. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. They fought back, Grin said. They moved in ways we could not predict. Their weapons were different, crude, but effective. They created a singularity. Arbiter, a black hole, as a weapon. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives of the 42 species shouted questions and accusations. Some called for Grin's execution. Others demanded immediate deployment of the full council armada. Velmos raised one ancient hand. Silence fell. The humans created artificial gravity manipulation, he said slowly. Interesting. Our own scientists abandoned that research path 3 million years ago. Too unstable. Too dangerous. He made a sound that might have been admiration. They are either very clever or very foolish. Both, I think, said a quiet voice. Ambassador Thyra stepped forward. She had been recalled in disgrace after the humans rejected her demands. But she had been allowed to observe these proceedings. Her 4 eyes were troubled. I spent time among them, she said. Before the battle. They are not like other species. They do not value safety above all else. They have concepts we lack words for. Honor. Pride. Freedom. She paused. When I delivered our demands, I expected fear. Instead, I saw anger. They were offended that we would ask them to kneel. Offended? Velmos repeated. The word seemed strange to him. We have conquered species for so long that we forgot something important, Thyra continued. We forgot that some beings would rather die than live as slaves. The humans remember this. It is in their blood, their history, their songs. She looked at the Arbiter with something like sadness. We made a mistake choosing them as targets. Enough, Velmos said. The Council does not make mistakes. We will simply send more ships. The full armada will crush them completely, but the chamber was no longer unified. Representatives whispered to each other. Doubts spread like poison. On the far side of the galaxy, those doubts were turning into action. 3 species, the Vorn, the Keleth, and the small but clever Tenari, had watched humanity's victory with growing hope. For centuries, they had paid tribute and surrendered their people. They had accepted the Council's rule because fighting seemed impossible. Now they were not so sure. A secret message reached Admiral Teho Kang through channels so encrypted that even the Council's best analysts could not break them. The message was simple. We want to talk. Teho met with their representatives in a hidden station deep in uncharted space. The 3 alien ambassadors looked nothing like humans. The Vorn were tall and covered in scales. The Keleth were small with too many legs, and the Tenari looked like floating clouds of light. But when they spoke, Teho heard something familiar. We saw what you did, said the Vorn ambassador. We have dreamed of such things for generations. But we were afraid. Fear is natural, Teho replied. We were afraid too. We're still afraid. But we decided that some things are worth more than safety. Teach us, said the Keleth representative. Teach us to fight like you do. We can share what we know, but I won't lie to you. Teho leaned forward. The Council is preparing a massive attack. 500 ships. Maybe more. Our chances of survival are small. If you join us, you might die alongside us. The Tenari ambassador's light pulsed thoughtfully. We might also live as free beings for the first time in our history. That seems worth the risk. An alliance was formed that day. It was small and fragile and probably doomed. But it existed. Back on Vethara, Ambassador Thyra found herself unable to sleep. She kept thinking about the human president, standing alone in that great hall, saying that single word that had changed everything. No. Such a small word. Such a simple concept. And yet the Council had no defense against it. She began researching human history. What she found amazed her. These beings had only existed for a fraction of a second in cosmic terms. And yet they had filled that time with endless conflict, endless struggle, endless growth. They had invented weapons capable of destroying their own world, then stepped back from the edge. They had built empires and torn them down. They had enslaved each other, and then fought wars to end slavery. They were chaos given form. They were unpredictable and dangerous and absolutely unwilling to accept limits. For the first time, Thyra wondered if the Council was the villain in this story. Meanwhile, Dr. Hana Choi worked without rest. Project Prometheus had been her greatest achievement, but it had been destroyed in its first use. She needed something new. Something better. In her lab aboard the far horizon, she stared at equations that should not work. Gravity manipulation. Quantum tunneling. Dimensional rifts. The Council had abandoned these research paths millions of years ago because they were too dangerous. Hana smiled. Dangerous was exactly what she needed. Captain Minho Lee visited the memorial for the fallen. 3,000 names were engraved on the Wall of Heroes at Luna Station. He read each one, remembering faces, voices, laughs. These were his friends. His family, his communications officer, Johan, found him there. Captain, Admiral Kang, is calling all commanders to a briefing. Minho touched the wall one last time. I promise, he whispered to the names. I promise, we'll finish this. The briefing was grim. Intelligence reports showed the Council assembling the largest fleet in recorded history. 500 warships, dozens of planet killers, the full might of 42 species that had ruled the galaxy for 9 million years. They're coming to end us, Teho said simply. No more small attacks, no more testing. They want to make an example. Burn Earth. Destroy every colony. Erase humanity from existence. The commanders were silent. The numbers were impossible. Even with their new allies, they had barely 200 ships. Can we win? Someone asked. Tejo thought for a long moment. I don't know. But I know we will fight. And I know that whatever happens, the galaxy will never be the same. We showed them that the Council can be hurt. We showed them that free beings can stand against tyranny. He looked at each commander in turn. That idea will outlive us. Even if we fall, others will rise. The Council's days are numbered, whether they know it or not. Minho stood. Then let's make sure as many of them fall with us as possible. The war room filled with the sound of fists hitting tables in agreement. Across the stars, the final battle approached. And in her private quarters, Ambassador Thyra made a decision that would change history. She began recording everything she knew about Council defenses, fleet movements, and tactical weaknesses. Then she found a way to send it to Admiral Tejo Kang. The final battle began at the edge of humanity's solar system, where the asteroid belt gave way to empty darkness. This place, which humans called the Threshold, would become the most famous battleground in galactic history. Admiral Tejo Kang looked at his tactical display and saw death. 500 Council warships filled the screen, more firepower than any species had ever assembled. Against them stood 120 human vessels and 30 allied ships from the Vorn, Keleth, and Tenari. Numbers that should have meant instant defeat. But numbers were not everything. Signal from the enemy flagship, his communications officer reported. Warlord Grin is demanding immediate surrender. He promises quick deaths if we comply. Tejo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Send him our response. One word. He'll understand. The word was sent. No, the Council fleet advanced. This time, Grin had learned from his first defeat. His ships moved in loose formations, ready to scatter if the humans used their unpredictable tactics. His gunners had been trained to track fast-moving targets. His shields had been reinforced against nuclear weapons. He was prepared for everything he had seen before. He was not prepared for what came next. Dr. Hana Choi stood at the center of the far horizon, surrounded by machines that should not exist. She had not slept in 3 weeks. Her eyes were red, and her hands trembled. But her mind was clear. Omega Protocol is ready, she reported. But Admiral, I need to warn you. This isn't like Prometheus. I can't control where the effect goes. If I activate it too close to our own ships. I understand, Tejo replied. Wait for my signal. The two fleets met in fire and fury. Plasma lances crossed with nuclear missiles. Ships exploded in silent bursts of light. The darkness filled with debris and death. Captain Minho Lee drove the Defiance into the heart of the enemy formation. His ship was already damaged from the last battle, held together by emergency repairs and desperate hope. His crew had been fighting for hours without rest. Enemy destroyer targeting us, his weapons officer shouted. We can't dodge in time. Minho made a decision in half a second. Instead of trying to escape, he accelerated toward the enemy ship. What are you doing? His first officer screamed. Trust me. The Defiant slammed into the Council destroyer at full speed. The impact crushed the front section of both ships. Metal screamed and tore. Crew members were thrown against walls, but the Defiants had been built tough. Human ships were designed to survive disasters. The destroyer, built for elegant superiority rather than brutal survival, broke apart. Minho pulled his battered ship away from the wreckage. Half his crew was dead. His engines were failing. But he was still flying. That's how humans fight, he whispered. Across the battlefield, General Sun Wu Baek led a boarding party onto Warlord Grin's flagship. The assault shuttle had barely made it through the defensive fire, and Sun Wu had lost 20 soldiers just reaching the airlock. Now he stood in the corridors of an alien warship, surrounded by enemies, armed with nothing but human weapons and human determination. Push forward, he ordered. The command deck is 3 levels up. The fighting was brutal. Council soldiers were larger and stronger than humans. But humans were faster, more creative, and utterly unwilling to give up. They used every trick, every dirty tactic, every desperate measure. Sun Wu himself killed 11 enemies before reaching the command deck door. He was bleeding from 3 wounds. Two of his soldiers carried him the last few meters. The door opened. Warlord Grin stood inside, surrounded by his personal guards. "You cannot win," Grin said. "Even if you kill me, the fleet will continue. Your world will burn." Sunwoo laughed. It hurt to laugh. Something was broken inside him, but he laughed anyway. "You still don't understand," he said. "This was never about winning. This was about showing the galaxy that you can be beaten. That your power isn't absolute. That anyone who refuses to kneel can hurt you." He raised his weapon. "My world might burn, but your council will fall. Not today. Not tomorrow, but soon. Because of what we did here." He fired. In orbit, Admiral Tejo watched Grin's flagship go dark. The enemy fleet faltered, confused without their commander. "Now," he said quietly. On the far horizon, Hana activated the Omega Protocol. The effect was simple in concept but impossible in execution. 30 satellites, hidden among the asteroids for weeks, suddenly generated a web of gravitational distortion. Space itself bent and twisted. The center of the Council fleet found itself falling into a well of crushing force. 63 ships died instantly. Their hulls crumpled. Their crews were reduced to atoms. The greatest concentration of Council military power in history vanished in seconds. The surviving enemy ships scattered in panic. Some tried to fight. Most tried to flee. Human and allied vessels pursued them, destroying those they could catch. When the battle finally ended, 300 Council ships had been destroyed or captured. 200 escaped into the void. Earth's fleet was broken. Only 40 ships remained capable of flying, but Earth still stood. On Vithara, High Arbiter Velmos watched the final reports come in. His hands shook. His ancient mind struggled to accept what he was seeing. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." Ambassador Thyra stood beside him. She, alone, was not surprised. "They were never primitive," she said quietly. "They were simply free. And free beings will sacrifice everything, rather than lose that freedom." She looked at the Arbiter with something like pity. "The Council is finished. Not today, perhaps. But the idea of resistance will spread. You cannot kill an idea." The aftermath came slowly. Human colonies celebrated in the streets. Allied species sent messages of gratitude and support. Other species, still under Council rule, began asking questions they had never dared ask before. President Una Park addressed the galaxy 1 week after the battle. She stood in the ruins of the UN Assembly Hall, which had been damaged in a Council bombing raid. Behind her, reconstruction crews worked to rebuild. "We did not seek this war," she said. "We asked only to be left alone. The Council demanded tribute. They demanded our children as slaves. They expected us to kneel." She paused. "We said no. And we will always say no. Not because we are stronger, not because we wanted violence, but because freedom is worth more than safety. Dignity is worth more than comfort. And no price is too high to remain standing." She looked directly into the cameras, speaking to every enslaved species in the galaxy. "You can say no too. You can stand up. You can fight. And when you do, humanity will stand with you. Not as your rulers, not as your masters, as your allies, as your friends, as equals, walking together under stars that belong to everyone." The Council collapsed within 10 years. The Free Systems Alliance rose in its place, a union of species that governed by consent rather than force. Admiral Tejo Kang retired to a small house on Earth's eastern coast. When reporters asked him about the victory, he always said the same thing. "We didn't win because we were brave. We won because we feared slavery more than death." Any species can find that courage. They just have to choose it. Captain Minho Lee was promoted to admiral. General Sun Woo Baek trained the next generation of soldiers. Dr. Hana Choi disappeared into classified research, working on projects that would protect humanity for centuries to come. Ambassador Thyra, who had secretly helped humanity win the war, was granted asylum on Earth. She spent her remaining years studying humans, trying to understand how such a young species had changed the galaxy. She never fully understood. But she knew one thing for certain. When President Una Park said that single word in the assembly hall, The universe had changed forever. In history books across 1,000 worlds, the story would be told for millions of years. The story of tiny Earth, facing the endless might of the Galactic Council. And what did humanity say when asked to kneel? No, just one word. The word that broke an empire. The word that freed a galaxy. The word that proved, once and forever, that the spirit of free beings cannot be conquered. No.